everyone. This is DigiAna Group interview project number 5. Today we together with the artist named Break. Hi, Break.
Yeah, it's good.
So Break is my real respect artist, and I participate lots time in DigiAna Group events. Of course, like physical performance event and also like virtual performance event, and also he made a like virtual exhibition in our could you introduce you like by yourself?
I guess, yeah, I just make video games and illustrations and animations, and I make a lot of work too. Maybe I'm most known for making like quite a lot of video games, like web games, posting them on the internet. But it's funny because I feel like in terms of like in relation to like DigiAna or something, Seungjin, you've invited me to like do performances. So I've been usually when it comes to that stuff, I'll do like kind of like an interactive game performance, and they're pretty abrasive, I guess. Which is funny because I think the first thing you saw me do was I was just advertising. So I used to do installations at this DIY space gallery called Baby Castles.
Baby Castle, right.
And I think the first time that we met was when I was basically just asking people to help out with the installation, but I like made a slideshow, and the slideshow was really weird. And I think I was like trying to like freak people out a little bit. Or like kind of like gauge like, oh, if this, the way I'm presenting this to you is interesting, then you should
Right. There is
come on and help.
There is the event about I forgot the event name.
It was Ribbit's Frog World. So Baby Castles, when I was doing stuff there, it was in a basement, and basically, well, I guess to give further context about Baby Castles is, I think for the longest time, like a lot of what they're doing is they're trying to like relate video games and like the art world and like music, and like kind of tie it, like cross-pollinate and tie stuff together. And one way they were doing that was like, oh, we'll have like an artist curate like a video game installation. And I think that always kind of bothered me, because I think when it was like, oh, it's like one artist, it like sort of lent some sort of importance to that. Like it felt like sort of like, I don't know, like beholden to this idea of like, oh, there's like this one artist. And I thought that was always a little bit weird, especially when a lot of the artists that they would involve weren't really like, they were using video games more as like an aesthetic than like having some like more personal connection with video games a lot of the time, or that's at least how it felt. Like you would get the sense that like, oh, this is video games as an aesthetic, or like, a lot of things there would end up being like more like tech art related. And I guess I get the sense that like with video games there's like a strong community aspect to a lot of video games, and I think that's one thing that I find really interesting about them. And I also felt that one issue I had with that gallery was the fact that it, there were a lot of ideas of like the way the hierarchy worked, like, oh, it's like, there isn't a hierarchy, but there definitely was. There's like a lot of like,
you mean they're like art world, like a gallery system?
Even art world, but like I think specifically with like a lot of DIY spaces, they have like an idea of like, oh, there's no one's in charge, that sort of idea. And them having artists run installations was someone being in charge.
Mm.
And it kind of gate kept people from really figuring out a way to be involved. So part of like the idea of Frog World was I like the idea of not having such a specific hard line like theme or concept to the show. So then it would leave it open for more people to be able to figure out how they would be involved, right? So basically the idea is there's this guy that used to hang out a lot around Baby Castles named Ryan, and he was kind of this tall skater kid who would just like hang around a lot of like video game events. And I just asked him like, oh, what if you were the artist for this installation? He's not like an artist that's known in the art world or anything like that. He's kind of like this like scenester kid, and I was like, oh, if you had a show, what would it be? And he was like, Ribbit's Frog World. Or I think he said Ryan's Frog World. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, it's just filled with mud. The whole basement's filled with mud. So I was just like, oh, it'd be funny if it's just like I picked this person to be the artist, brought this person to Baby Castle. It's like, oh, this is the artist. And to use that to like sort of break it out, so to involve a lot more people. So basically in the end we had a lot of people work on the show, and there were like several large mud pits throughout the basement that some people accidentally would step in because it's kind of dark down there.
Right.
And we laid this green carpet down, so we made it feel like it was a little rainforest cafe. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Rainforest Cafe, but it's like it was a little bit like cheesy Disney World, but it was also like there are these like big pools of mud you can step in. There's like
you made that really like
yeah, we filled it with mud.
Seriously?
And there's like lots of like pools of water. All the walls were like completely painted to like kind of a cheesy mural of like a swamp or something.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
And there was like a soundtrack that happened that would have a day-night cycle. And so basically the whole time you were there were like crickets and frogs chirping, and it was like this whole like immersive thing. And then all the games were like frog
Yeah.
adjacent. There was like one game that that was covered, the controller was covered in gum.
Gum? Really?
Yeah, it was like chewing gum, and you would play it.
Wait, so somebody already chewing that, and like somebody like attached to the controller, or just like
So it's this game called ABC by I forget how to pronounce her last name, but it's Claire Carre, I think.
Alright.
And basically it's like a narrative game, and while you're playing it you chew some gum, and then when you're done with the game you place your chewed gum on the controller, and basically it's just covered in like this like used gum, and it's like really disgusting. And I think what was interesting is like that game was meant to be shown at like short events, but Frog World was up for like at least it was like up for like about a month. So the controller got really disgusting. And we held it in like a container. So because if we left it out for too long, flies would get on it. It was really gross.
Sounds cool, but I love it. Like
I had made games a bunch when I was like in high school and middle school and stuff, but I never really finished any of them. But primarily I did like illustrations and like animations and stuff growing up. And then I partially went to school for for computer science, and then I
Really?
switched into doing painting. So I was taking painting classes the same time I was taking
Mm.
computer science classes, and then I just kind of stopped doing the computer science thing and continued with painting. But as soon as I finished undergrad, I was like, oh, I really want to just make games. So I'm just gonna dedicate myself to making
All right.
games. So like after undergrad, I was just like, I'm gonna like start releasing games on my own, and I'm not gonna like care about the quality of them necessarily. Just
I love that kind of thing. Like some like people don't care about quality. Isn't it?
yeah.
I love that kind of idea.
Yeah. So then I just from like I think I published my first video game online in 2013.
All right.
And then since then, like I used to post on this website called Glorious Trainwrecks, which is like the kind of, some people call them trash games. And yeah, I've posted, I think maybe like 200, maybe over 200 games on Glorious Trainwrecks.
All right.
And yeah, I went to, yeah. So yeah, I basically made games for a long time at this point. And I've on Glorious Trainwrecks, I've made like 200 games, and then I have like a bunch of different aliases online, and each of them have like a very large collection of games
Wow.
associated with them, and they're all they're all kind of aesthetically in line with each other, but sometimes I'll like pair, there are different conceptual ideas with each of these accounts or whatever.
Wow. So like why you are in the like undergraduate, like already you joined the baby castle, like working together, or after or what?
So I did an installation. I went to school at NYU, and I did an installation for my like thesis project. And so I had like been to baby castles before, and I think I'd shown a game or two at baby castles previously, but then they saw this installation I did for like the end of year show, and then they wanted me to be more involved. But then that's when I started being more involved with them. But I only started doing baby castle stuff in like 2017, so I wasn't really there for that long. But I think a lot of people associate me with baby castles because when I was there, I was involved with a lot of stuff there.
Got it.
Yeah,
All
it was a
right.
good time.
All right, got it. And later you meet me and like also doing performance show in DigiAna Group, right? Like, is there any like differences in your like inside like like for example, let's do this idea in Baby Castle. Let's do this idea in DigiAna Perform. Like that kind of like thing you do have.
So at baby castles, a lot of what I would do is just like the installation. So like it would be stuff where like, oh, there's like an artist or a theme and this and that or the other thing. So I think the big thing at baby castles that I would want to be aware of is like, I think the big thing, well, I think with both, when I do the performances at DigiAna or with baby castles, I think the largest question is like, why is somebody why is anybody watching this live? So if I'm doing it like a stream, like why would you want to watch it live versus just watching a recording later? And then if it's in person, and this is a big question with baby castles, it's like, oh, a lot of the games we would show would be, and this was kind of an issue for me, is I found many of the games that they would frequently show at baby castles, you could just download them onto your computer, right? So it's like, why do I want to go to like a basement to play these games I can play online? It doesn't really make any sense. So a lot of the time when I was working on an installation, it was really my priority to figure out, why would you play this here rather than at home? Like, is there, yeah, what's the reason? So I was trying to figure that out, and either it would be like, oh, this is a multiplayer game or it's a cooperative game, and maybe that gives a little bit more of a reason to play it in person, so you can be next to the person you're playing it with and kind of interact in that sort of way. Because playing like a two-player multiplayer game online can be a little bit different. A lot of people won't have their mics on, or maybe there won't be like an option to even communicate with the other person so directly. So there's that reason. But then the other thing I would do frequently is I would make like controllers and stuff. So I'd make like weird setups or controllers and things like that. So you would have to play it in like kind of a really specific way. I think one good example at Baby Castles was there's this thing called Guitar Mouse. Guitar Mouse is this game by oh my god, it's the illustrator is Minnie Pete, but she has this like small collective, and she made this game where it's like you play as a mouse playing guitar, but you have to like do it by like scroll using the scroll wheel, so you play it with your mouse, and it's pretty fun, and I liked it. But I did the installation for it at Baby Castle, so I basically set up two mice like this on like a cardboard guitar that I made, and then it made it so it actually felt like you were playing guitar, which was kind of like a weird it was like a weird version of it, but it like felt a little bit more connected, and it's something that you probably wouldn't just do at home if you just like downloaded the game or something like that. But I think the thing you're talking about is, so I used to I think I just really like the idea of like, oh, it's like a performance. So like I feel like a guitar is like a cultural like symbol of like performance. And for a while I was like interested in the idea of like playing a video game in front of people, or like what does it mean to like play a game in front of other people. And I just like the idea, like there's kind of like almost a meme of like, oh, it's like, oh, this person's playing Dark Souls with a Guitar Hero controller, right? Things like that. Or like playing like, oh, this person could play Guilty Gear with a Guitar Hero controller. And I always thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
So there was a while where I was developing a lot of games where it's basically meant to be played on a Guitar Hero controller. So I was like making games specifically. I think the disappointing thing is like a lot of these like, playing Dark Souls or whatever else, is it's really people just end up there's usually like a directional pad on the Guitar Hero controller. And something about that feels like it's cheating, because you expect someone, like, if they're playing whatever game with the Guitar Hero controller, you expect them to strum.
Yeah.
And usually people are just using the D-pad, and something's like a little disappointing about that. So
I know, like a kind of like they remember me like when DDR, like Dance Dance Revolution, in launching this work, like I usually play in my computer and like use like just finger like that. Yeah, like a kind of cheating thing, like
yeah, it feels like cheating.
Yeah.
Because playing it on the big pad, it's completely different. And there are things, if you play with your fingers, that you just can't. It's like way easier to do with fingers, because like with legs, you only have two of them, and you have to like orient them. You know what I mean? Like you have to, the big, sort of thing is like, oh, what if you cross your legs? It's almost like a puzzle, but like if you just have like your four fingers on the keys, then it's just like it's like a little too direct. Like there's not the puzzle of figuring out how to move your legs, right? It's not just like what, DDR is not just like what button you press. It's like how, I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's like, a lot of the times you'll like, and you got to make sure not to like trip and fall, or like that you're setting yourself up so you can make the next move
Mm.
easier, right?
Yeah.
Which is what's really cool about DDR. But
do you have any vision about what you're doing? I mean, no, like I mean, this is very seriously thing, like I mean, like listen, like for example, why I come to New York and why I'm doing art is first time was I want to make a money or I want to get some fame, like through my art because like they already like art like like business scene and like marketing scene, like, and also New York is really famous place about doing art. They have history, a lot of gallery, like business system, like curator, whatever, like they kind of like gallery people. So, but I mean, I see a lot of like artist people in here in New York, like you and like other people, and I noticed wow, there's a lot of different way to do art. Not for money or fame or just their destiny or whatever, just their interesting thing. So like I also like changed my mind, like separately. This one is for business. This one is for fun. This one is for more my like different insight one, like this. So like, how do you think like you're doing the like game stuff to change the art thing? Like, what you make like you're making movie, like just creating or like show to people, like.
I guess some things have like different functions. Um, yeah. I mean, if you're talking about like an end goal,
Kind of, yeah.
I guess there are a lot of different goals, and I think it comes from, it's different for each sort of thing, or each game or each project that I work on. There's like a different goal for each of them. And if I guess you're talking about like, oh, why am I doing any of it?
Mm.
Um, well, I I I think it would be cool, and maybe this isn't actually what's gonna come of all of this, but I think it'd be really cool to make like a triple A, like mainstream game, but also the way I'm going about priming myself for doing that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Mm.
But I think basically, I guess one reason I'm making games is just because I feel like I have a lot of like pretty clear ideas, and I don't see a lot of people taking advantage of like certain opportunities with games, and I think that there could be a lot different about them, and they can have like different functions.
Mm.
And I think some of these problems are just issues that I'm interested in solving.
Mm.
So like, for instance, I think like a lot of games are like way too long, right? So a lot of the games I make are really short, right?
Mm.
And I think a lot of games have like too much an emphasis on like kind of like sucking people's time out.
Mm.
And I think there are a lot of ways where you can make a game where it doesn't feel like such like like you're putting your labor into this thing and making it churn out. So a lot of the things I'm interested in terms of games is like, making ways for people to connect with other people, having things be interactive in ways where it's not just like such like a solitary interaction, or something where you have to necessarily like spend like a lot of time just like on this one game. So I think some of those things are important to me. I also don't love all the time
Mm.
games that are so much about like skill necessarily.
Mm.
because I feel like there's a lot of games that involve skill,
Yeah.
but I also don't like the idea of games that are completely without any skill, right? So like I kind of don't like the opposite ends of some of these things where like I think there are a lot of like narrative or art games, and then a lot of those games are just kind of like devoid of any tension when it comes to something in regards to like skill or decision making, and they're just kind of like, oh, it's just like you're watching an art video, or it's just like you're looking at a painting. I think that's not like taking advantage of what's like interesting about the interactivity of games. And yeah, I think there are like, yeah, just some pretty obvious like solutions to some of these things. But I also like the idea of like conveying, I guess, different subject matter that just isn't necessarily conveyed in games. I just think there's like a lot of broad opportunities, and I think the way in which like kind of like the community or just like the way like it is something where it's like, I guess culturally a lot of people are like, oh, I play games and that's part of my personality, or I don't play games and that's part of my personality. Or with something like music or like movies, you know, things that are kind of more generally accepted medium, it's not like people aren't like, oh, I don't listen to music. Like if someone said I don't listen to music, you'd probably look at that person kind of funny. Right?
Possible, right? Like
It's just like a little bit strange.
oh yeah.
Or like, oh, like I don't like movies. It's a little bit strange. I mean, I don't love all movies, but like to be like, oh, I don't really watch movies at all. It's, some things like if you hear someone say that, it's just like a little bit like, oh, are you just like stuck in a...
So sometimes that kind of people they say, but it's mean not like, you know, he never watched a movie in his life, you know, like it's mean like not a lot of time watch a movie, not a lot of time listen to music, that kind of thing, right?
Well, the thing is also with movies is a lot of people will watch them out of like a social sort of context, right? So like, oh, it's like, oh, you like maybe a thing to do with your friends is you go to the movies, right? Or like you do this or that, or like you go to a concert, right? And I feel like with games, there's like a lot of stigmas that prevent just like a regular person from involving themselves in games. And I think that there are a lot of clear ways to like sort of involve more people. And I think there are a lot of games that a lot of people like to play. Like, you know, there are like casual phone games that a lot of people like to play, but I still think that there's like, and maybe that's disappearing over time with like you know, more generations of people are just growing up playing games and things like that, and it's easier to access them. So yeah, I think it would just be, I think games like have a clear like community around them a lot of the times, and I think that's just like an interesting thing that I think I would like to contribute to. But I would like to direct a Sonic the Hedgehog video game, AAA Sonic the Hedgehog game. That would be sick.
Yeah, like do you remember when you do like a make like virtual exhibition in the what is that? The modular hub.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I also kind of shocked about what you made. Could you tell me what is the behind of that, like making your process?
For that, so yeah, I guess for context, it was this like Mozilla Hubs gallery that was kind of this maze. I think Mozilla Hubs is like kind of a funny tool.
Yeah, kind of.
It's
almost
like
nobody knows that. Almost nobody knows that. That's also a great thing.
Yeah, like where people can like float around and like mess with the environment and things like that. It's like kind of like a crappy version of Second Life. And I just put up a bunch of, I think it was like a lot, it was like half like drawings of Family Guy characters,
Yeah.
and
I remember that.
half like sort of like like things that felt like conspiratorial.
Mm,
So
mm,
yeah, I guess there are a lot of themes of like tornadoes and then like things inside of tornadoes.
mm,
And there's a, I think when I made that, it was like, I think it was maybe around the time of, or like it was either before or after like the election, where I feel like there's like a lot of QAnon related, stuff in the media.
yeah,
Um,
right.
and I think the main thing, because I think Mozilla Hubs is such like a what is, like, you go in it and immediately it's like, what is this? And I
Yeah,
think
right.
I think I wanted to give even more of a feeling of like,
Yeah.
someone who I really like DeviantArt, and I was really involved in like different communities on DeviantArt growing up, like in high school. I still go on DeviantArt from time to time.
What is DVR? What is it?
DeviantArt is like, it's like an illustration website. It's
Oh,
pretty old at this point, and not a lot of people use it, but there are still like really specific communities where all they do is like,
kind
there
of
are
like
people that dedicate
like
themselves
like
to posting.
Tumblr thing. Like,
It's like more like just illustration.
all
It's
right.
like illustration. There's some photography, but it's mostly like, I feel like in the 2000s it got like a real big scene for like anime art,
Right.
and it's mostly like Western. It's mostly American people, I think, that post on it. But there are people that are from all over the world, and I met a lot of friends that I still have today
Oh,
off of DeviantArt.
mm,
Um, but sometimes you'll get into some like really strange rabbit holes on DeviantArt
mm,
where people will just, like, whole communities will really focus on certain characters or subject matter. And I always just really love that, because you can go on like, there will just be like certain combinations of things that are really intriguing to me.
mm,
And I mean, this is like kind of something where it's like, oh, like, yeah, just people get really tied into things, and it'll be a wide variety of people. So I just like the idea of like, this was almost kind of like something that you would find on DeviantArt, like the group of images.
mm,
And I wanted to make them all like very quickly, because
mm,
sometimes some of my favorite artists on DeviantArt will like release like hundreds
mm,
of images at a time,
mm,
and they'll post them all at the same time. And DeviantArt's a website where they have like a newly featured section. So if
mm.
you post something, it will immediately come up in the new posts.
Got it.
And I wanted it to have that feeling of like, oh, one person posted like
Mm,
a bunch of images on DeviantArt at the same time.
mm. It's kind of
Uh,
like a solo exhibition show, like all his artworks. Like, right?
yeah. Yeah, and yeah, there's a lot of, I can I have a very extensive favorite section in DeviantArt. So I have people don't really know that, but I have like a DeviantArt account where I just like favorite a bunch of stuff, and a lot of it's um I just try to find like some of the most baffling
Mm,
things on that website. There's a lot of very baffling things. I just didn't want to think too hard about what was going on, and um, I don't know what people thought of when they when they looked at it, but I guess those were the general like themes.
mm.
And I think like the Midwest was like kind of a large theme for some of
Oh,
these installations, or for that group of illustrations.
COVID, like Corona situation, like I mean, like a lot of media and even like Times Magazine say it's growing up like again. So maybe maybe there is some like possible in we're gonna shut down like
Oh, like a lockdown
maybe,
again?
or like near future, maybe again, maybe
Yeah.
New York. So, like, how do you think about that situation for your? I mean, like, if that situation comes, we cannot do a performance show, right? So I cannot see, of course, your like physical interact the like game performance show.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean, recently, for like the past 2 years, I've just really been focusing on online stuff. So at the beginning of quarantine, I was just there's like a series of games where I was making a game like every couple of days and just posting them online and really
wait,
just
wait.
responding.
Every couple of days you make a game, only one day? Really?
It would take someone take like a day or like a couple of hours
Really?
or it would take a yeah.
Where can I see your games?
I have a lot in a bunch of different places. So this is one collection of them. This is this account called April Ghoul. And it actually in the first game on it was I think one of the games that I made for one of the first performances I did at DigiAna. So I think that's in a series. So I did a series of games.
Alright.
There's one game that I made a long time ago called ABC.
That is wrong.
And then I made a sequel called ABC2. And ABC2 is like basically this game where you have to figure out like there are 26 and now there are 27 images and you have to look at these images and figure out which one stands for each respective letter of the alphabet. So the kind of point of the game is it's like
That is wrong.
it's really difficult to tell. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of a funny thing
That
where
is wrong.
I just made one game and it was really short and there's just like one series of 26 images. And then I was like, oh, it would be funny if I like really like fleshed this out and made a bunch of different levels. So I started releasing further games like with this concept. So I did ABC2 Apple, which is just a bunch of images of apples, and you have to figure out which apple stands for which letter. And then I made ABC2 Balloon, one for sleep, one that's like a bunch of demons, one that's just like a bunch of pictures of eggs, and then the one you clicked on was ABC2 Frog. And my plan is to do one game for each letter of the alphabet. So, it'd be, we'll continue to H, I, J, all the way to Z. But yeah, you clicked on the one for F for frog. And from what I remember, I think that's 27 pictures of different frogs.
Oh my god.
And then I'll show you this other page.
Alright.
So I think you're talking about like, oh, what do I do? So April Ghoul is definitely like games that I've been making just like kind of as to convey a certain aesthetic idea that I think would be which is good, which I like these games that are like they're really fresh, and they're kind of like some of them are like shocking or like really frustrating. Some of them are like kind of like extreme, but like in sort of boredom or like uncomfortability. Some of them are over like immediately. But then Yoki Mart is this other project I've been doing where I've been doing commissions. And this is honestly, I was just like, oh, I'm broke. And my girlfriend was like, oh, you should just like make games for people. And I was like, okay. So it's almost like improv where someone will give me however much money. So I do I think I started out with like $5 for 10 minutes, but now I do $10 for 10 minutes. And usually I stream making these. So yeah, these are a bunch of, so basically I'll just like charge someone to like make like an improvised game. And yeah, I think I have like 60, there's 63 of them, and all of them are like pretty short. And they're all like web games. But yeah, I usually stream making them so people can watch me like make it. And I think that's interesting just because like I think there's like a mystification about like, oh, how do you make a game, and like how is it possible to make a game, and like what can you do in that amount of time? And I think it's kind of funny because sometimes people are impressed that I can make games this quickly, but then some people are like, oh, these games are crappy. But then it's like, I've only worked on this for 10 minutes. It's like, hey, you only gave me $10. What did you expect? Yeah, so people get really upset. I did one thing a really long time ago where I was just making people games in 1 minute. And a lot of, yeah, I just made them in 1 minute. And a lot of them would just be like, you would have 2 options, and then you would click. I would only allow you to click one option, and then it would give a result. And usually it would be making fun of whoever gave me the suggestion for a game. So it would usually be some sort of like roast or whatever, where I would just like make fun of whoever asked for the game. And usually people thought it was like pretty funny, but one person I would usually do these in like game festival situations, and sometimes there are people at these like festivals or shows or whatever that are more like business oriented, or like they're like trying to scout for like the next Minecraft or whatever. And I remember this one guy in this suit was coming around, and I made him a game in 1 minute, and he was like, yeah, see you on the App Store.
You know, like nowadays, like new technology or like kind of like appear. People say like new business model also like appear. Like for example, like YouTube, make a YouTuber, like a Twitch, make a Twitch like VTuber, whatever, game player, like kind of.
Like a streamer,
yeah. So I mean, you make also like your like business model also by yourself.
Yeah, it's different. Well, it's interesting because I started doing this as like NFTs were popping up, and I think it's interesting because it's like this is kind of like the opposite of that in some ways, where it's like, oh, like, you know, I should definitely be charging people more money for these, but it's like, oh, instead of like you get something that I had already made, you know, and you pay a lot, that this is like, oh, you know, I'll make something that I'll make a game, or I'll make like a digital artwork that is just yours, right? Like, you know, you came up with like, you know, you paid me directly, and I made exactly what you wanted, right? And I like the idea of like, oh, it's like these, you know, I don't work on it for that long, so it kind of encourages me like, oh, if I don't work on it that long, I'm not going to charge that much for it, right? So it's a little bit more affordable, like a regular person could afford these, or to like spend their money on this, which I like, you know, because I feel like a lot of, you know, people like to own art or like to support artists, and this is just like a way where, you know, you can own some art, you know, or have art, and you don't have to have that much money to do it. But it's also like, I also don't have to spend that much time making it. And I feel like a lot of things that artists make for purchase, it's just like, sometimes it can be like a little bit junky, like, you know, it's like, oh, if you have like a painting, or like what happens if you decide you don't like the painting anymore, right? You just put it in a closet.
Yeah,
The thing about that's like a little bit weird, or like if it's a sculpture, what do you do it when you stop liking it? And like the physical presence of it, kind of puts pressure on you to keep liking it, or to decide you like it later. And I think that's the big thing. Like I was doing paintings for a long time, and I really had to like figure out why I was doing them, or like what did I like about them. And I think in the end I was just like, it's just like, I think some paintings are nice, and I still do make, like I made that painting. Not that I really love that painting or anything like that.
So you mean the background, like
Yeah.
okay.
And I do own some paintings from other people, but I think it's just hard to contend with. It's like a weird, yeah.
I know. I understand what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's a strange, I don't know. It's a strange dichotomy, just like owning like these like physical things that you just like put up somewhere. Yeah, I've been doing some stuff with this arcade recently. I've been putting on I mean they're like tournaments and things like that for different games. And that's been kind of a good way to like explore that. It's just like kind of encouraging people like
Wait, that is your like hosting event, or
I've been, so it's not my space. It's my friend's my friend has like a DIY arcade.
Actually, like last week about the Monday or something. Like no, Wednesday or something.
Yeah, it was last Monday.
I tried to go there like Tetris competition.
Oh yeah.
I tried to go, but I have other schedule, so that's why I didn't go.
Oh yeah, it's all good. We'll have stuff in the future.
Yeah.
We're putting on a very elaborate. This will be, so the things in the past have been more like just setting up some games and having like a party or something, or having a tournament. But on February 26th, we're gonna do, for like the 25th anniversary of Pokemon, we're gonna be doing like a Pokemon event, and we started discussing it, but it's gonna be a little bit more on the baby castles side, where it's gonna be a little bit more of an installation, a little bit more of like an art event rather than just like having games up. There's one other, this is a little bit more general. I haven't posted stuff on here for a minute, but this is like the main, this is like the main one. And do you have PC or Mac? You're Mac, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I used to post things mostly on Glorious Trainwrecks, but most of those games are like PC only games.
Alright.
But here's some like larger projects on this one, and then it has links to some of the other things.
Got it.
Yeah, there's some
200 games I want to play, 200 games I want to play.
Oh yeah, there's like some writing that I did as well, like some short essays.
I suppose to read also, like, oh my god, so interesting. Yeah, they're also like really helpful for me, killing me and with my wife killing time. Like these are, yeah, we're gonna kill our time with your game stuff.
Yeah, there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
You'll probably be over with a lot of them sooner than you think. There are a lot of them are really short.
All right.
So there are two articles that I have. So on that last link on pumpkin clouding, yeah, the one of them is 200 games I won't play, which was kind of made a lot of people on Twitter really upset.
Really?
So it was kind of like a reaction of like, I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with like the idea of like, oh, like you gotta watch Squid Game, you gotta watch Game of Thrones, you have to do all these things, and all these things take up quite a lot of time, So I basically made a list of games that, are very popular, and then I listed next to them. I went on How Long to Beat, which is like a website where you can see how long it takes to beat a video game. So I listed all like 200
Wow, this is
200 games, and then how long it would take to beat them.
Oh,
And so that was the first thing, and that made some people pretty upset. And then I made a second article called 200 Games I Won't Play Gold. And then on that, I listed out all those same games from that first list, but then I expanded it. So not only did I include the hours, but I gave myself a rate for each game, right? So I was like, if you want me to play any of these games, you're gonna have to pay me money, right? So the first one on the list is Disco Elysium, right? And I said, it takes 20 hours to play, 20.5 hours to play Disco Elysium, and I would have to play it, or my rate for playing Disco Elysium is $30 an hour, right? And and then I also included the purchase cost, right? How much it would take for me to buy the game, and some of these include like, oh, I have to buy a new console for this game, or like I have to buy this or that, I have to buy a controller, so like the cost includes all these other things. So then you can see the total amount it would take for me to play any of these games, right? And then I think the most expensive one I have is That Dragon Cancer, which is only a 2-hour-long game, but I said, if you want me to play That Dragon Cancer, which is like a sincere game about like this couple's child dying of cancer. It's like a biographic game. I said it would cost $49,995 per hour, and you also have to give me $10 for purchasing the game. So it would cost me, or it would cost people $99,999 for me to play. I think that's definitely, that doesn't add up, but you get the point. And then there's some really extreme ones where it's like League of Legends. I said you would have to pay me $49 an hour. I have a lot of games on here, and a lot of games people really like. So if you want to pay me, so I guess right now, let's see how much money. So people were donating to this for a while, and I think I've made $514.
Really? Seriously?
Off of this post.
Wow.
But that sucks because it's like, so for me, so I said I would play Disco Elysium if I got donated $655. Right. So I'm short like 100 and I have to do math on the spot. Was it 135? Yeah, 135 about dollars to play Disco Elysium.
Yep.
So if anyone who's watching this wants to give me $135, I will play Disco Elysium for 20 hours. And I also detail here, if that total is met, I'll tie myself up to a chair and just play it. I'll just play it straight through. I'll just play it in one go. So that's like 20 hours just tied to a chair. I'll just like be gagged and I'll just play it. But I guess people didn't want to give me $135 more. So yeah, if you're interested, even if you give $20, it'll make it a little bit closer. Every penny counts. And I'll stream it. I'll like stream playing it.
Yeah, on Twitch, right?
Yeah, on Twitch, yeah.
Yeah, got it. All right, let's finish your interview. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.